from the CBS Bay Area studios. This is KPIX-5 News.
Good morning. 1 minute shy of 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ann Makovic.
1 minute shy. I'm Phil Mateer.
And I'm Mark Kelly. We have a whole bunch of news to share with you in our next half hour.
Yeah, the feds said that they are going to likely come out with new indictments against State Senator Leland Yee. And in the meantime, there's not going to be a special election to replace him, which is leaving some voters kind of in the lurch.
That's right. And speaking of voters, BART Board is taking a look at that contract negotiations and the strikes last year. They're paying upwards of $225,000 to try to find out what went wrong. We're going to sit down with BART Board President Joel Keller and say what they're trying to do to make voters happy.
Yeah, and also talking transportation, we're going to take a look at rideshare. They're looking to grow a lot come this summer, but it could be changes to your city block and where you're able to park, so we're going to dive into that.
Lots coming up, but first, let's take a quick check at your weather forecast today. A live look from our roof cam. You can see the Bay Bridge. Plenty of low clouds hanging around this morning. Current temperatures in the low to mid 50s all around the Bay Area. Your weather headlines for the Sunday ahead. A cloudy start, some patchy fog, then afternoon sun all around the Bay. Brief warming trend starting today. We'll have a look at your 7-day forecast coming up in a few. Mark.
Well, and this morning in Berkeley, fire investigators are looking into the cause of a huge warehouse fire. Smoke and flames caused a spectacular sight for drivers along the East Shore Freeway last night. The good news is no one was hurt, but the building housed several businesses that were destroyed. New details on that deadly freeway disaster about 100 miles north of Sacramento. KPIX-5's Brian Webb with what the crash scene evidence is revealing.
Well, the two biggest points that we learned, first of all, investigators don't think the driver of the FedEx truck ever even hit the brakes. And two, that even though there were seatbelts on board that brand new tour bus, several people were thrown from it, falling to their deaths. Federal investigators took another crack at finding clues at the crash site where Thursday's collision happened, killing 10 people, including 5 students on their way to visit a college campus. They will also do toxicology tests on both drivers, study data recording equipment found on board the bus, and take a look at the truck's transmission, possibly to determine its gear and speed. But again, they found no tire track evidence that the FedEx driver tried to swerve or stop.
There was clearly reaction on the part of the bus driver. We can differentiate that from the truck driver, where we see no marks.
And there is still only one person who reported seeing the FedEx truck on fire before the crash. NTSB investigators are hoping to talk to more witnesses soon. In Orland, Brian Webb, KPIX-5.
Well, Governor Brown issued a statement on behalf of himself and his wife, Ann. In part, it reads, "Ann and I extend our heartfelt and deep sympathies to the families, friends, and loved ones of those who died. We join all Californians in expressing our gratitude for the tireless work of the Red Cross and emergency personnel who responded bravely to this terrible tragedy." Well, we are following this story closely, both on air and online. Go to KPIX.com for your in-depth coverage. Let's look at your top stories this Sunday morning. Back to you guys at the desk.
New this morning, more charges are expected in the corruption case against State Senator Leland Yee and 28 others. Prosecutors plan to seek a new indictment within 3 months, adding charges and possibly more defendants. Meantime, a lawyer for Raymond Shrimp Boy Chow says he will plead not guilty to all charges during a court appearance on Tuesday.
And now, get this, there will not be a special election to replace suspended Senator Leland Yee, even though his constituents are without a vote in Sacramento. And they're not happy about that.
Yeah, some San Francisco voters basically feeling abandoned. KPIX-5's Mike Sugarman tells us it comes when a lot of important issues are coming up in Sacramento.
Leland Yee has been suspended by other state senators, not the people who voted for him. So right now, between Leland Yee and 2 other senators who have also been suspended, roughly 250,000 Californians have no voice in the state Senate.
It's kind of amazing and unprecedented that we have 3 senators being suspended and all of their constituents just have to sort of sit there and wait.
Wait for the next election, says KPIX political analyst Melissa Griffin-Kane. Big issues before the Senate: rent control, taxes, schools. No one has their interest at heart. And it's also arbitrary.
Look at the way these districts are designed. The red is District 8 in San Francisco, and the gray here is District 9. And look at the difference. Sometimes it's literally block by block.
and sometimes it's in the middle of the block. Here's how goofy it gets. I'm on Edna Street in the Sunnyside district. Right now I'm standing in Leland Yee's district, District 8. If I move over here, I'm in District 9, that's Mark Leno's district. So right here, I have no representation. I'm Leland Yee's district. Mark Leno, I'm represented.
There can't even be a special election to replace these guys until they're officially out of office.
Mike Sugarman, KPIX-5.
And here's another twist. Come this next year, Leland's district won't even exist anymore, or at least not the way it is, right? Because of redistricting, it's going to get split up between San Mateo and San Francisco.
Meantime, Democratic Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi says Washington isn't what it used to be. I spoke with her at an event on Friday, and she says she's frustrated with Republicans blocking the president.
Washington is a different place right now because the obstruction is the, shall we say, the mantra of one of the parties there, and obstructing the president is how they measure their success. I've never seen anything like it. But you know what? You just have to leapfrog over that and keep fighting.
And one of her main goals this year is immigration reform. So she says she's never seen anything like it in D.C. I mean, it doesn't seem true.
No,
seems like the way of the world.
Remember, one person's obstructions is the other person's principled stance. That's how it's always gone. But immigration reform doesn't look like it's going ahead, and it doesn't look like national minimum wage is going ahead. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure anything is going to go ahead until after the midterm elections, in which case we'll see a lot of political posturing and then probably followed by more gridlock.
All right, let's get to your column this morning in the San Francisco Chronicle. Mateer and Ross talking about Paul McCartney. He was supposed to play this big concert to say goodbye to Candlestick Park.
That was the idea.
He
was invited to by Mayor Ed Lee last year when the two met up at Outside Lands Festival, and McCartney expressed some interest. As a matter of fact, they were even having talks underway to bring the former Beatle back to Candlestick, where you might recall the Beatles played their last final paid concert back in 1966. But while the talks with Stick were going on, it turns out that the 49ers were in conversations as well. And it appears that McCartney's management firm, after touring the Stick and the 49ers' new stadium, appears to be headed down south with the idea of playing the show instead at the new Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, causing a little bit of a tension between the Niners and the San Francisco, who have been trying to put the biggest smiles on the teams moving south.
True. So if that doesn't happen, there needs to be some other sort of event to say goodbye to Candlestick.
Well, they are trying to line up something, but I don't think anything they're going to come up with could possibly match the idea of Paul McCartney being there. But that's the way it goes because, as usual, there seems to be a lot of money at stake here.
Coming up, certain limited parking in certain Bay Area cities is about to get even more scarce. You have rideshare companies to thank for it.
I think Hillary Clinton is going to be the first legitimate woman candidate, provided she runs for president.
Later, our political insiders explain what hurt Hillary in the last presidential election and what makes her a standout if she does decide to run again. We'll be right back. It's 9:09. The last thing commuters want to see again is a BART strike. And BART's board of directors doesn't want to see it either. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. Phil.
BART is turning to outside help, and they're hiring a consultant to come in and try to prevent the problems that plagued labor contract negotiations last year. It's a $225,000 contract, and joining me now is BART Director Joel Keller, who heads the operations. Okay. A lot of people out there are going to be asking this question. Why do you need to spend upwards of $250,000 to tell you what went wrong? Isn't it kind of obvious? You guys just didn't agree on anything.
Well, I think that's a legitimate question, and we've taken a hard look at what we're doing internally. And I think an independent voice, an independent look at the whole process will lend credibility to the ultimate outcome. So the contract's up to $225,000, and it's we're looking at all the practices, what went wrong, what we should do in the future, and how we can work together with labor and management to try to avoid future strikes.
But you seem to be on a collision course. This time you hit, you bounced back, but were there any structural changes that are going to prevent the issues of pensions, the issues of raises, the issue of health costs, that it becoming increasingly difficult for systems like BART to afford? Was there any significant change made in that?
Well, no, I think you're right. And going forward, the issues get harder and harder and more difficult because we're looking at the need to keep down costs so that we can ensure an affordable ride for our riders. We're looking at trying to be fair and equitable to our employees who have high expectations. And in an expensive economy in the Bay Area, we have to try to be responsive. But those are the kinds of things that create the tension that existed 6 months ago. So going forward, my idea has been to try to find a way to engage in that kind of dialogue, to let the emotions surface, but to avoid strikes. I don't want the riders to be in a position to have to suffer because management and labor can't agree on wages and benefits.
Okay, but let's take a look at that word strike. For most people, when something goes on strike, workers walk out, replacement workers come in, and you have a thing called a strike. It's a labor fight. This is a walkout. The laborers leave, the system shuts down, and the laborers know that when the strike is over, they get to come back, no matter what. It seems like a one-sided fight.
And you're right. The rules, which historically have been in place for the last 40 years, make it very difficult to bring in.
Is this consultant going to be talking about changing those rules?
I would hope the consultant would look at all aspects of the labor negotiations and what changes need to occur, even if they require legislative action.
Well, speaking of legislative action, one of the biggest tools that the union had in this was the political backing of many elected officials, especially state officials that came in, state senators, state assembly people, and put pressure on the directors. Some even showing up at their doorsteps and saying, oh, we want you to work this out.
Well, that's right. A BART labor negotiation is a high-profile negotiation in the Bay Area, and legislators do come in. Historically, they've done that. 4 years ago, when we were successful in our labor negotiations, we effectively fought off the state representation, but this time there was so much interest, it was difficult to keep them out of the room, and they did come and put pressure on the board.
So I wonder if the consultant is going to be talking about that as well.
Well, I would hope the consultant would look at all aspects of labor negotiations at BART.
Because that's one of the most interesting things about these reports are the questions asked or the questions that aren't asked.
You've been doing this for a long time, Phil.
I've been around the block. Let's hopefully we don't do another BART strike. Joel Kelly, thank you for joining us this morning, and good luck with whatever we find. We'll be looking for it. Back to you guys.
Happening today, several blocks of city streets will be closed off for San Francisco's Sunday Streets event. This is video from last month's event along the Embarcadero. Today, several miles of car-free space will be made available for people to run, walk, bike, whatever you want to do outside. That is going on in the Tenderloin and Civic Center neighborhoods. Also today, the 47th annual Northern California Cherry Blossom Festival in Japantown. 2-weekend-long event bringing thousands out to celebrate Japanese and Japanese American culture in San Francisco. There are 4 stages of events and music. Next weekend, 150 performers from Japan will be at the festival performing at various venues.
We were out at that yesterday with a couple friends. It was a good
fun.
time. We had good weather yesterday. Looks like we could have some good weather again today. So if you are heading out, it will be 62 degrees for the festival in Japantown. So here's what you can expect if you're heading out the door early this morning. We definitely have a cloudy start, some patchy fog out there. That's going to dissipate, and we're going to have afternoon sunshine, and it will be warmer today and staying dry for now. All right, so 65 in San Francisco, 71 down in Mountain View, 77 up in Napa, and 76 in Livermore. They're your highs for today. And as we go into the next 7 days, it is going to be warmer today and tomorrow, and it will be dry for the next 7 days. But then we're going to see a few extra clouds roll in come Thursday, but 60s and then cooling off to the lower 60s towards the end of the week.
But when we talk transportation, the word share is being used more and more. You've got bike share and ride share.
Yeah, car share, that's another big one, and it's looking to expand this summer in San Francisco. Now that means it could be even fewer parking spots in a city where parking is a dog-eat-dog sport.
The fact is that car sharing has an environmental and social benefit, and the more we can expand it and serve more people, the better it will be.
And that growth could be just around the corner for CarShare CEO Rick Hutchinson. This summer, San Francisco could lease 450 of its 280,000 valuable on-street parking spaces exclusively to rideshare cars.
So our goal is to make sure that the Bay Area is a better place to live.
Whether or not to expand these car sharing services is still going to go through several public hearings, but people we talked to seem to like it.
Yes, I agree with it.
you use it?
I do use city car share.
So I think it's a good idea.
Kind of like the popular bike share program, but for cars, ride shares allow drivers to rent a car on the fly for a quick hour-long errand or day-long trip.
Using those services actually helps reduce the number of cars that people have to buy.
But what if a parking space outside your apartment converted into a rideshare only spot? Could get frustrating. Rideshares promise they'll take up no more than 2 spots per city block. In total, that's less than 1% of city parking spots. Well, as for the finer points like how green the cars must be, that's still being worked out. Still, Hutchinson has an ambitious roadmap. 20,000 fewer personal cars and more car shares on Bay Area roads in the next 6 years.
We look at anything we can do to make sure that transportation and transit is more effective in San Francisco, but around the Bay Area as well.
So 3 companies involved in this pilot program. We got Get Around, Car Share, Zipcar, that's another big one. So they're all part of this effort.
And let's not forget the bike share programs, which are also taking out spaces where you're storing bicycles now. So San Francisco parking is a premium there.
Yeah, those are innovative ways to get around that. Now, speaking of parking, right now you do have to pay meters on Sundays in San Francisco. That started a few months ago, and Mayor Ed Lee's still working on trying to change it back.
That back. He wants that taken off the table for now. He says that, it makes the city about $8 to $10 million a year, but half of it's in parking tickets, and that's not making people happy. So one of the ideas is they possibly might still have the meters, but just not have anybody handing out tickets. I'm just trying to talk them into doing that 7 days a week.
Wouldn't that be nice, right?
Have it
No
on the
more
honor
tickets.
system.
All right, so the rug is pulled right from underneath a mega plan to keep the Raiders, Warriors, and A's in the East Bay. The slip of the tongue that may mean the crumbling of Coliseum city plans in Oakland. Welcome back. It's 9:20. Oakland city officials are discounting a claim by the mayor about funding for a new stadium complex at the Coliseum site. Now, on Thursday, Mayor Jean Quan said on the radio that a development team was partnering with the Crown Prince of Dubai. But on Friday, other city officials said there's no such partnership. And the mayor later acknowledged that fact through a spokesman.
That is really bizarre.
Yeah, stay on that.
Well, will she or won't she? The question follows Hillary Clinton everywhere she goes.
Yeah, and this week the former Secretary of State was in the Bay Area for another round of paid speaking engagements that showed a new side of the potential presidential candidate.
And that's why we sat down with Carla Marinucci, who covered the visits here for the Chronicle, and Willie Brown, and asked, okay, what is up with this Hillary 2.0 and the press's reaction to it?
What we saw of Hillary Clinton in San Francisco was a woman who handled tech, she handled politics, and she talked about her future in bigger detail than we've ever heard.
She also managed to avoid a shoe.
In Las Vegas, and came back with a comeback that was amazing. Look, the Republicans should be afraid, very afraid of what they're seeing with this Hillary Clinton tour.
Particularly if she continues in this vein, because suddenly she's no longer viewed by the press as something potentially awful. She's actually viewed as a positive force. She's been smart, she's been clever, and she's been non-presidential.
What was her key flaw in her last presidential run, and can it be corrected?
Her flaw in the first one was rejecting her husband. Until she accepted Bill Clinton in early February of 2008, she didn't have a good operation. Once she had a good operation, she literally swamped Obama from about the middle of February till the end, but it was too late.
Question, Hillary Clinton, in the past, she was being criticized for not answering questions of the press, being sort of this candidate that came up, showed up, collected the money, left. She's doing that again. Why the difference? Why the different treatment now? Why the different feeling?
I think she gets it. In San Francisco, she sat down and answered questions and really seemed to speak from the heart. That's a big difference from the very controlled candidate we saw last time around.
Well, but wait a minute. You speaking pre-February 08. If you recall, when she began to cry in that first step, she became a quality candidate in the eyes of the press, and she has continued in that vein to the present day.
Is her being a woman still an issue? Positive or negative?
Major. I think Hillary Clinton is going to be the first legitimate woman candidate, provided she runs for president. She is going to run as a woman. She's going to run as a symbol for women. She's going to run just as Obama ran on the black side. She's going to do the same thing on the female side. And just wait and you see the junior high school girls and the collection of people in all of those little organizations that are totally, i.e., not political, but suddenly they're all wearing Hillary buttons, not even fully understanding what that means. She is going to be the first real female candidate.
You know what's interesting is she likely will be the candidate if she runs for the Democrats because nobody else is running. And what's funny, I can't remember the last time, it's been so long, where we had a sitting vice president in a two-term presidency who has not even been asked, sort of like, are you running? Right. Remember, Dick Cheney didn't run. Before that, it was Al Gore. Before that, it was other. It's always been the vice president to step up. This time,
why do you think he wouldn't?
Nobody's even asking. It's almost as if since they picked Obama last time, it's naturally Hillary's turn.
Right.
Sports is next.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I got the story of two tough guys out of Las Vegas, A's and the Giants, and we'll set you up for the Masters final round. Don't move. Well, good morning, everybody. Before we get any further, some unfinished business last night in Las Vegas. Manny Pacquiao, Timothy Bradley Jr., WBO welterweight title on the line. This is the rematch of this one. But last night, it was Pacquiao, a unanimous decision, winning this one. It was the first loss in the career of Timothy Bradley Jr.
All right.
Thank you, Bud.
That's Vern Glenn for you. Final look at your weather forecast before we leave you this morning. These are your highs today. 65 in San Francisco, sunny skies all around. 77 in Napa, 73 in San Jose. And your 7-day outlook shows the warming trend today, tomorrow, then cooling down a little bit. Some clouds moving in toward the end of the week. Well, thanks for joining us this morning for the KPIX-5 News on KBCW.
See you next week.
Bye-bye. Have a good week.